Hello and welcome to the world around us. We begin our travels this week in Burundi, where a radio station is trying to make peace between Hutus and Tutsis, then to Las Vegas, where children are involved in a unique system of justice, from there to Bogota in Colombia, where women are improving the image of the police force, and finally back to the United States and a look at how empty cans and bottles add up to a living for some. Burundi has sadly gained its place on the world map in the past few years for its serious ethnic problems between the Hutu and Tutsi tribes and the terrible killings they have resulted in. Here we have the story of a New Yorker called Brian Rich, who runs a radio station called Studio Ijambo, which tries to act as a peacemaker between the two ethnic groups by trying to find common ground and by trying to tell the truth.
It has become a familiar scene in Burundi. Peasants caught in the crossfire of a savage civil war. American Brian Rich knows he can't change this, but he wants to help. The 31-year-old New Yorker came to Burundi 16 months ago. He's one of the few Westerners left in the war-torn country. He stayed behind to report on the conflict that is tearing Burundi apart.
A lot of the work we do is concerned with checking out and investigating the humanitarian aspect of the crisis in Burundi.
These people have been left homeless and hungry. Brian learns these refugees have no medicine, no doctors, no electricity, and they haven't had any clean drinking water for 6 days. A traditional dance masks the tribal hatred in Burundi, a tiny African country of 6.2 million. Ethnic division has spawned a cycle of violence that erupted 3 years ago. It's a bitter battle between rebel Hutus, which make up 85% of the population, and the ruling Tutsi government. Hutus have the numbers, Tutsis have the power, peasants have the pain.
It appears that all these people have been killed in the last 6 to 8 weeks, which is a tribute to the fact that the violence is increasing, that people, civilians and military, are being killed in increasingly larger numbers.
The fighting has killed more than 150,000. No one knows which village will be next. At this radio station, they try to keep on top of the story. Brian Rich runs Studio Ijambo, a project funded by the American media organization Search for Common Ground. It's the closest thing to a free press operating in Burundi.
People are fed up with the news or information we get from the national radio. We know that they give us wrong information, and willingly.
So Studio Ijambo tries to give a more accurate picture. From Burundi's capital, Bujumbura, Radio Ijambo's staff of 17 transmit up to 3 reports daily.
2 communes sont concernées. Il s'agit de la commune Mugina.
8 million Hutus and Tutsis can tune in from Burundi and nearby Rwanda and Zaire. There is only one way to get at the truth in Burundi: go and find it. A mission which is both difficult and treacherous. Death stalks every inch of this road north of Bujumbura. The UN calls it one of the most dangerous in the world.
The last 30 or 45 days, there's been about 30 ambushes or more, so there's usually 1 ambush a day.
So far, 4 journalists have been killed in Burundi since 1993. So far, Brian has been lucky. On this trip, Brian and a colleague from Studio Ijambo, Alexis, stopped to talk to a crowd of refugees. They learn there's been fresh fighting in the area. The refugees tell them this morning's attack took place in a neighboring village.
We're asking these people what time they heard the gunfire, what they know. Also asking them, what the situation is. This is a displaced camp of people who've been driven out of their homes as a result of the fighting.
And so they move on. Next stop, an eerily quiet haven. The only people home, Tutsi military. It's a necessary formality, polite banter. And it leads them to what they are looking for.
C'est sûr que s'ils attaquent, vous savez, s'ils attaquent ici, sachez que là,
the site of the recent attack. The military says Hutu rebels are responsible, but it is still not clear.
As usual, there are conflicting and contradictory reports of what took place, but what's clear that these houses have been destroyed. Some of them are still burning. We did see people this morning carrying the roofs away, as well as some of the furniture, and it's been confirmed by people living in the area that there was an exchange of gunfire at that time. So,
Brian says this is quite typical of the way the conflict is taking place, one village at a time. He decides it is too dangerous to go any further. And he is right. 3 international Red Cross workers set out on the same path as Brian today, except they ventured further north and were killed. Brian had been with one of them earlier in the day. 32-year-old Cedric Martin was killed an hour after this picture was taken in an ambush. No one was caught.
systematically, we try and evaluate what the risk is, at what hours there are attacks on the roads, and even through the network of international relief agencies and UN, the people who really understand what's going on are the Burundians I work with, and they're the people who can identify very quickly if a situation's bad or if we should leave. So it's a lot of trust that's involved, but I think the risk comes with the job.
In a country where ethnic differences are often settled with machetes and bullets, the team of Hutus and Tutsis at Studio Ijambo are making a point that it's possible to work together.
We don't have to share the same point of views. When there is, for example, a problem, when some people have been killed, we have different point of views, but it doesn't mean that we don't understand each other.
And that's what Studio Ijambo is all about, setting an example, often bringing the warring sides together, a Hutu and a Tutsi leader in studio, face to face, to work out their differences over the African airwaves. Remarkable, considering all of this is done with a hovering presence of the military. The broadcasts are aired over state radio, and journalists are always fearful of crossing the line. But Brian is still in Burundi, still searching for the truth where others have failed.
We're not doing war crimes, we're not judging anybody, we're just trying to find out what happened, what's taking place in this country.
Jeff Chagrin reporting.
Juvenile crime and punishment is a problem to deal with all over the world because it is often difficult for adults to understand why children commit their crimes and what punishment they warrant. In a uniquely American experiment, high school children have been recruited to act as jury, prosecutor, and defense lawyer. We take a look at one such kids' court in Los Angeles.
We all make mistakes at some point in our life, but we have to understand that the important part is realizing and accepting that mistake and regretting what we did. Now, you will hear from my co-counsel.
This is teen court, where teenagers are being judged by a jury of their peers.
We as defense counsel recommend that the defendant's sentence consists of 10 hours of community service, 1 jury duty, and a letter of apology to Walmart.
In Las Vegas and in 200 other American cities, overburdened juvenile court systems are recruiting local high school kids to act as jury, prosecutor, and defense attorney. The kids' court hears only misdemeanor cases. An adult judge oversees the proceedings.
We are on recess.
First-time offenders have the choice of going to a regular court or this one. And many come here because these proceedings don't get entered into a permanent criminal record. 15-year-old Damone Tisdale is accused of battery.
I was breaking up a fight, and the kid, he started fighting at me, so I punched him. I didn't want to fight him no more, so I just left him alone.
What's going on?
Let me forget that the attorney told you how to say yes, sir, and no, yes, Your Honor, no, Your Honor.
It'll be a learning experience for him, I know that, because he's never been through anything like this, so I think it would be better for the first time for his own peer group to judge him than adult. Because I think that's something that he needs. and then maybe he'll understand that this is not a plaything.
Damone Tisdale. The case involves one charge of battery.
Miriam, Damone's lawyer, is 15 years old.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Your Honor. My name is Miriam Warren, and along with my co-counsel, Sean McClanahan, I will be representing the defendant, Damone Tisdale. When he went to attempt to break up this fight, he went over, and before he could even break up the fight, Robert Wong began to swing at him. So in an act of self-defense, my client threw one single punch. So you must ask yourselves, did Damone Tisdale, when he
This is Miriam's 6th trial, and the 4th time she's been the defense lawyer. Before she ever went into court, she attended free classes sponsored by the American Bar Association, which started the experiment. She takes her responsibility seriously.
I think it teaches me that law isn't just like the television show LA Law, because these people who I'm defending or sometimes prosecuting are going to get the possibility of a punishment. So that punishment isn't going to be fake, and neither is my role in the courtroom. Hi, Damone.
Hello.
My name is Miriam. This is my co-counsel, Sean. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Where would you like us to sit?
We can sit right up in here.
Okay. Okay, in this case, you're charged with 2 separate offenses. The first one is battery, and the second one is consumption of alcohol. How are you going to plead on battery?
Not guilty.
Now, in the report, you wrote that you hit the kid one time. Then you don't presume that you willfully and unlawfully hit him with the intent to hurt him, right?
I didn't.
So when you hit him, why would you say you hit him?
Because he was trying to hit me.
So an act of self-defense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pat is the prosecutor in Damone's case. This will be his 5th trial.
The case that I'm doing tonight, we're going to go for pretty severe punishment because this kid just has he doesn't care kind of thing. It doesn't bother him. So we're going to make sure he does care sooner or later.
Pat and Miriam go to the same school, but that's not unusual. Often the prosecutor, defense attorney, and jurist in a kid's court case all go to the same school. The only restriction is that they don't know the accused.
Just go to PE, Pat. I'll see you on Thursday. I'll see you in court.
I do.
You may be seated, sir. And as you are seated, please state your name and spell your last name for our record, please.
Okay, my name is Officer Herman Newsom. Newsom, N-E-W-S-O-N.
Thank you,
Good
sir.
evening. Did you see this fight occur?
No, I didn't.
Okay. As the Robert Wong testified, he was hit to the back of the head and then a few other times. How come that wasn't written in the report?
Robert Wong testified that this individual struck him with a closed fist in the face and head area. That's what he was cited for.
Okay. So once again, you did not see the fight?
No, I did not.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
What do you have to prove?
Lawyers volunteer to help the kids map out their court strategy.
He's guilty. They're going to plead not guilty.
Well, that's because you have to prove it. If your victim witness doesn't show up, then you can't prove the case.
Mr. Tisdale, in the locker room of the Clark High School gym, you witnessed a fight, am I correct?
Yes.
Did you at any time feel threatened?
No.
Did you hit Robert Wong?
Yes, I did.
Nothing further.
I think that teenagers are much more harsh than adults would be when they see a chance at a power role, which you are in power when you're on the jury. When they have that power role, they take full advantage of it.
Before we even start talking about it, does anybody think he's not guilty?
The jury is deliberating.
You do?
9 of the 12 jurors think Damone is guilty, but the decision must be unanimous. If they convict him, he could be sentenced to up to 40 hours of community service and instructed to write both an apology letter to the victim and a research paper on the causes of crime for the court.
We have to prove, like the judge said, we have to prove he's guilty or he's not guilty.
Would the defendant please stand with counsel, face the jury? Mr. Foreperson, on the count of guilty, how do you find the defendant, guilty or innocent?
Innocent.
All right. So say you won.
Damone has had his day in court and won. Hopefully he won't be back. But Miriam and Pat will. Like most American cities, Las Vegas has more and more juvenile crime, and that means more and more cases for kids' court.
Told you I was gonna win.
No, you didn't.
On to another children's story. Street children have been killed by policemen in Latin American countries like Brazil and Colombia with such regularity that it has given them international notoriety. The Colombian government is now trying to change things by recruiting women police officers who deal with the problem more gently and with an understanding that men in the force did not show. The experiment is showing signs of ending police brutality in the streets of Bogota.
It looks like a boarding school, but it isn't. It's a police barracks. The young women who live here are members of an elite unit created 2 years ago by the Colombian government. Their mission is to reach out to the poorest communities, especially to the children there, and to establish faith in a police force known for its corruption and brutality. Elena and her friend Sonia represent the new face of the Colombian police. While most of the country's officers are men, the Women's Juvenile Squad is all women. The government is bargaining that because most people here think of women as compassionate, they'll trust these women cops. Their work takes Elena and Sonia into the most dangerous neighborhoods of Bogota. Cartucci Street is notorious. Street people, thieves, and drug addicts have banded together here against the police. Yet Elena and Sonia go to see them alone and unarmed. Elena and Sonia try to get people into drug treatment programs and, if they can, back to school. At the end of the street, lookouts for police are on the watch. Most are young children like Alice, who are new to the streets and trying to find their place. They are the ones Elena and Sonia have the best chance of reaching. They tell everyone they meet about a school their unit runs. Then they go to the classroom and wait to see who shows up for today's lessons. Several of the kids they met file in. Alice is one of them. Elena gently questions him.
Why are you in Carucho?
Because I had a fight with my mom and dad.
Do you want to return to your parents' house?
No, ma'am.
How old are you?
15.
15, and you've left home?
Yes, ma'am.
And you won't go back?
No, ma'am.
What do you want to do?
I want to work with my terracottas. I want to start a small business with my friend. Yes, a small business. I want to work.
What kind of business?
Terracotta objects. Work. Because I don't want to return to my dad and mom's house.
But why?
It's my dad.
What did your dad do to you?
He kicked me out of the house.
Doesn't what Alice is doing seem dangerous to you?
Yes, but maybe he runs even more risk at home.
Alice comes from a street nicknamed the Bronx, where drug dealers rule. The street is so dangerous that these shots were taken with a hidden camera. It is the only street in Bogota where even the Women's Juvenile Squad never goes. In the nearby neighborhood of Ciudad Bolivar, a funeral is being held for a 17-year-old boy who was killed by a police officer. The juvenile squad is down the street from the cemetery playing with the neighborhood children. The atmosphere is tense. The squad is afraid the funeral procession will attract angry demonstrators and a riot will start. The funeral goes off without incident. The family plays the boy's favorite songs for him to hear through the casket, a ritual here, and then they quietly return home. At least on this day, the community is glad to have the police presence.
I agree that these girls should be involved, because they help a lot. At least they are more, how do I say, they have more love. They treat children better because, in fact, a woman is always nicer.
Nicer than men?
Of course. A woman always knows how to love children.
Occasionally, the juvenile squad does go out armed. Every evening, a special patrol is sent out to round up the street children and take them to shelters for the night. At a ticket window, the patrol discovers a group of street kids warming themselves against each other. There are 6 of them. The youngest is 6. The oldest is 14. They are brothers or cousins and have lived this way for months after leaving their mother who beat them. It's a brutal awakening for them, the cold, the fear, and especially the fact that they are being separated from their youngest sister and their dog because the shelter they're going to doesn't accept everyone. So they resist, just as they do every time someone finds them.
They're used to being picked up and dragged from place to place. These children even know which place to ask for. They say, I don't want to go here, or I want to go there because they treat me better or less badly, or they will take my little brother.
Tonight, like so many other nights, Sonia and Elena return to the barracks with a heavy heart. Tomorrow, these children will be back on the streets. But so will Sonia and Elena, ready to help.
Finally, to New York, and a story that's quite familiar to us in India, garbage as a means of making a living. In our cities, the sight of women and children sorting through garbage heaps to find things they can sell is fairly common, but it's hard to think of it happening in the richest country in the world. Well, it does, as we see in this story.
You see them everywhere in New York City, sifting through trash bins, pushing their carts along the busy streets. These people survive on society's margins, cashing in on the cans and bottles the rest of us discard. But recently, their faces have been changing. Guy Polhemus runs the Weak Hand Redemption Center, the largest purchaser of empty cans and bottles in the city.
When I started this, it was only people on the street, only homeless people on the street that would bring these containers back. In the last year and a half, what I have seen is families, mothers and fathers with their children coming, people that are on Social Security, people on fixed incomes for whatever reason.
Polhemus says that even though each can and bottle is only worth a nickel, it adds up.
I've heard stories of people helping to put their children through school on this. I've heard people paying their full rent, their full cost of living from these containers.
Gretchen Hill is considered by many to be the queen of cans. Before reaching retirement age a few years ago, she worked as a supervisor in a hat factory.
I worked every day. I never missed a day. I worked my whole working life was in the factory. I'm just applying everything, all the methods that I did while I was working. If I hadn't done the work that I did, I wouldn't be able to do this. But it's just a continuation of what I did. It's just preparing things, moving things around.
Gretchen's work begins at 11 o'clock every night, after store owners toss out the day's trash.
I take my card over, and I'm here on these 2 blocks, 45th, 46th, and 47th.
On the street, Gretchen is well known.
Yeah, that's right. You're right.
She has a reputation for being tough.
I tell Larry, don't bring me bottles.
Industrious.
8, 9.
Charming.
I just found your bottle, so. Okay, thank you very much.
and generous.
He's made 10 cents on me.
This makes her both popular and quite successful.
I see that one is no good.
Like this, you don't want.
Associate they take. I work with a variety of people. I react to those people like I did with the people I work with. And they respond because they're ordinary people that are down on their luck. And only the ones who are under the influence of some substance, they're the only ones that are quarrelsome or disagreeable.
Still, it's dirty, grueling work, without much respect.
In the beginning, the supers would come out of the building and say, don't go into those litter baskets. Those litter baskets are for the tenants of this building. You go to the supermarkets. They looked down on people. They thought they were, well, I don't know the word to use, but they had no respect, and they showed it.
On the other side of town, as night begins to turn to day, Carl Dade unloads his collection of bottles. Carl is 33 years old and works to support himself and his 12-year-old daughter.
Yes, sir. I got to pay them bill. It's no fun running around in the garbage. You know what I'm saying? Picking up cans and bottles. I want something where, I ain't got to go through all this. Get your hands all cut up, you know what I mean? The reason why I do it because I don't have no education, you know what I'm saying? I don't have, no real skills, as far as like getting a good job. I know how to plumber, plaster paint, stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? But this is what I know how to do without, selling drugs or robbing people or burglaring, stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? This is what I do to stay out of trouble.
By 6 a.m., Gretchen finishes sorting her night's catch. And by 7:30, she's on her way to the weekend center. It's a long night's labor to pay the rent, buy food, and eventually afford a long-awaited luxury.
I've been without teeth almost 10 years, and I got used to eating soft foods, and I told my landlord that I was going to get my teeth done. It was $4,000, and I'm down to $1,000 now, $1,200. I ought to be able to pay for it in a month. Once that's done, I may stop altogether.
Gretchen made nearly $82 last night and hopes to have her new teeth any day now. In New York City, I'm Michael Conford.